Good morning, students. So today we are going to read the class 10th English grammar chapter, that is relative clause, or that is called the adjective clause. Okay. So first you have to read the paragraph. What is this written? Once a man who had committed a theft was arrested and put on trial. His lawyer, who was very cunning, put the argument that it was his hand which had committed the theft, so his hand should be punished. The victim's lawyer was not satisfied. He put an argument which was different from the other lawyer. So he said that without the instructions of brain one can do nothing, so he should go to jail. The judge, who was listening patiently, thought for a while. The argument that the hand should go to jail didn't please him. So in this the paragraph, you see this the highlighted sentences. What are these highlighted sentences? Once a man who had committed a theft was arrested. ये देखो छुआ मैंने ये जो सेंटेंस अच्छी, once a man who had committed a theft, ये man विषय रे कहूची देखो. This clause who had committed a theft, एथरे verb अच्छी, subject अच्छी, plan verb अच्छी, subject अच्छी, जोटा ये relative pronoun टा एठी कोन होची, subject भाव रे काम करची. मन रहिला who had committed a theft. तेले man विषय रे गोटे clause देखो कहूची. तेणु the clause which modified the noun, the clause which modify the noun, a clause टी a man संबंध रे कहूची. तेणु ताकू आमे कोन बोली कहूचे, relative कली कहूचे. Here you see he is a lawyer. किए से lawyer? Now who was very cunning, who was very intelligent. Lawyer विषय रे clause टी कहला. So this is also a relative clause. Like this, here in this sentence you find it was his hand. ये जो hand हमें कहले, hand विषय रे कोस clause टी कहला, which had committed the theft. So this is the noun. In noun विषय रे जितेबेले गोटे clause कहूची, nouns ला गोटे ऑब्जेक्ट ही पारे, सब्जेक्ट ही पारे, तले सेही नाउन टी विषय गोटे क्लॉज जे कहूची ताको हमें कहूची कोन बोली, रिलेटिव क्लॉज. हियर आल्सो इन द सेम सेंटेंस इट इज अबाउट द आर्गुमेंट. ये आर्गुमेंट विषय गोटे क्लॉज को हाइची, दिस वन व्हिच वाज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द अदर लॉयर. सो दीज आर कॉल्ड द रिलेटिव क्लॉज, और वी से एडजेक्टिव क्लॉज. नाउन को जे मॉडिफाई करे ताको हमें एडजेक्टिव क्लॉज, एडजेक्टिव बोली कहू. ला तले सेही नाउन बा नाउन फ्रेज को जे मॉडिफाई कला ताको हमें एडजेक्टिव कहूचे, दैट इज कॉल्ड एडजेक्टिव क्लॉज. तले टोटल या को मॉडिफाई के करछि द होल सेंटेंस, दिस इज द होल सबऑर्डिनेट क्लॉज. तेणु ताको हमें कहले कोन बोली ना, एडजेक्टिव क्लॉज, और वी से रिलेटिव क्लॉज. गेटिंग? नाउ यू फाइंड दैट द सेम. What is the relative clause? It लिखाइछि. Relative clause, the relative clause is a subordinate clause which qualify the noun or pronoun used in the principal clause. You find here the judge who was listening patiently thought for a while. Tele which one is the principal clause? The judge thought for a while. This one is the principal clause. And in this the principal clause, which one is the noun? Noun is the judge. Noun is the judge. Yes or no? The judge is the subject. This one is the subject. And this the clause, this subordinate clause beginning with who, the relative pronoun who. Okay, modify the noun phrase. What? The judge. The judge is the noun phrase. The judge is the subject. And this the clause. This clause is the subordinate clause modifying the noun phrase. Getting? So it is called the relative clause. Understood now? The clause which modify the noun or pronoun in a sentence, noun or pronoun, or you say the noun clause, and sorry, noun phrase, is called a relative clause, or we say adjective clause. Understood? তাহলে जो clause टी, जो subordinate clause टी main clause रो noun किंबा pronoun को कौन करे? noun means से subject ही पारे किंबा object भाବରେ थाई पारे sentence रे, and that is modified by this the subordinate clause, then we say that subordinate clause is a relative clause. Understood? Now, how relative clause is formed? You find here. In this, these are the two clauses. I am reading a book. It is very interesting. How can we make it is a relative clause? So you find, I am reading a book. It is very interesting. Okay. So in this the clause, we would omit it, and in place of it we will write what? Which. What we write? Which. Getting? I am reading a book which is very interesting. You see, I am reading the book which is very interesting. ताले आमे कौन कले एई क्लॉज टी को सबऑर्डिनेट क्लॉज करिया पई हेले आमे कौन कले गोटे रिलेटिव प्रोनाउन बा आमे ताकू कहूचे सबऑर्डिनेटर हला. This relative pronoun or the subordinate is used at the beginning of this the clause. Which one is the subordinate clause? Okay, this one is the subordinate. I am reading the book is the main clause, and this one is the subordinate clause, and this subordinate clause is begin with what? The relative pronoun which, or the subordinator what? Which. That, which, who, where. Okay, these are the relative pronoun. Understood? Next one, all relative clause begin with WH word. All relative clause begin with what? WH word. What are these WH word? You see, who, whom, whose, which, that, when, where, and why. Okay, these are the relative pronouns. These are the WH words. Okay, with this the relative words, with this WH words, the subordinate clause is what? Made. Understood? So question is, you see, the boy got a prize. The boy got a prize. He is my brother. तले ताको आमे केमती करिबा? एटी गोटे करा हिची देखो. The boy who got a prize is my brother. अब हे परिबो जति ही टाको आमे ओमिट करि करि हु लेखुचे तले कोन हे परिबो? The boy who is my brother got a prize. हला. The boy who is my brother got a prize. Like this, or we can also join these two sentences and make a relative clause here and the subordinate clause. The boy who got a prize, who got a prize is the subordinate one, is my brother. But here the boy who is my brother, this is the subordinate one, and main clause is this, the boy got a prize. Understood? Here the boy is my brother is the main clause, and this one is the subordinate clause. Understood? It is the easy one, not a difficult things. So this subordinate, sorry, what saying, the relative clause begins with who, which, that, whom, like this. Okay. And here it is saying 8 कहूची जे गोटे relative clause generally आरंभ हुए is usually placed immediately after the noun phrase. You see, the judge who was listening patiently thought for a while. आमे पढुतले फर्स्ट पैराग्राफ रे सेंटेंस थितला. तले in this sentence, this one is the main clause. The judge thought for a while. Here this one is the noun. Who? The judge is the noun. Understood? and it is saying this one is the relative clause. This relative clause immediately follow the antecedent who noun phrase in the principal clause, in the main clause. Understood? The judge thought for a while, it is the main clause. Judge thought for a while, it is the main clause, and in this the main clause judge is the noun, it is the subject, and this subject is relativized by this the what relative clause who was listening patiently. So it is saying a noun pore संगे संगे noun रो immediate pore किए बसिबो relative clause टी बसिबो ए कथा लिखा है. And you have to remember this the relative pronoun, subordinators, wh words, and also the that is there. These are used in the relative clause. So मने रखो से गुडा को कोन कोन who, whom, whose, which, that, when, where, why, like this. Okay. Then आमे देखिबा ए रिलेटिव क्लोज टी वाक्यर को जगह रे बसुछि हला. दिस द रिलेटिव क्लोज दे कैन अपीयर से माने देखा जानती बोथ इन द सब्जेक्ट एज वेल एज इन द प्रेडिकेट पार्ट ऑफ द सेंटेंस. सब्जेक्ट पार्ट रे भी आमे ताको देखियो पाइबा, प्रेडिकेट पार्ट रे मध्य वी कैन फाइंड. अंडरस्टूड? तले एडी ଗୋଟେ एग्जांपल यू सी, द बुक दैट यू आर होल्डिंग इज एक्सपेंसिव. In this sentence, what is the verb? Which one? Is the verb, and before is what is there? This one. So this is called the subject part, and after the verb this one is called the predicate part. Yes or no? This is you know in what lesson 2. What? This one is the subject and this one is the predicate. तले verb पूर्वटा को आमे कहिताउ subject part and this one is the object part. तले एठी गोटे सेंटेंस देखिले, the book को किए मॉडिफाई करजी that you are holding. तले एई जो रिलेटिव क्लोज टी बुक को मॉडिफाई करजी ये को जगह रे बसिची, सब्जेक्ट जगह रे बसिची. अंडरस्टूड? तले आमे पाइले रिलेटिव क्लोज रो एठी पोजीशन कोठी रहला, that is in the subject part of the sentence. And here you see the teacher praised the student. In this sentence which one is the verb? Praised. And this is the subject, this one is the subject, and this one is the verb ठारू आरंभ करी आउ जहा रहिला, this one is called what? Predicate. This one is called predicate. So praise the student who won the award. Here in this the relative clause, which one? Who won the award? Okay, it is modifying who? The student. Student is the object here. Student is the object. Teacher praised. Whom praised? The students. So student is the object of this verb praised, and this object is a noun, and this relative clause is modifying this object. Every object is noun, you know. सब object गुडा को हमें noun कहि थाउ, ए object को ये कौन कला? Modify कला. तले एठी हमें कौन शिखिले? But we know the relative clause can be placed in the subject part as well as in the predicate part. Understood? Then you see what is called the subject relative clause and which one is called the object relative clause. It is very important. Okay? तले subject relative clause कहा को कहिबा, object relative clause कहा को कहिबा. Okay? They are the people who bought our house. भलो भाबे देखो इस सेंटेंस टी को. They are the people who bought our house. तले they are the people. They are the people. This is the main clause. This is the main clause. Who bought our house is the subordinate. Yes or no? तले एठी हमें कौन पाइले? Who bought our house? Bought is the verb, house is the object, and which one is the subject? They are the people are a main clause. तले subject के को जीए किनिले आमो घरटी को, तो जे who is the object here. So in this the subject clause, relative clause, जो relative clause रे relative pronoun t wh word t कौन हेतिबो subject भाव रे यूज हेतिबो. Understood? Then we say this the relative clause. Okay, this the relative clause is called the subject relative clause. Remember that what it is called, the subject relative clause. Understood? এবং এই হুটাକୁ ଆମେ କ'ଣ କରିପାରିବାନି ଅମିଟ୍ କରିପାରିବାନି, ଏଟାକୁ ଉଠେଇ ପାରିବାନି. ଯଦି ଏଇଟା ଅବଜେକ୍ଟ ହେଇଥାନ୍ତା, ଅବଜେକ୍ଟ ଭାବରେ ୟୁଜ୍ ହେଇଥାନ୍ତା, ଦେନ୍ वी कैन omit it. ତାକୁ ଆମେ ବେୟାର ରିଲେଟିଭ କ୍ଲଜ କହିପାରିବା, କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟ ରିଲେଟିଭ କ୍ଲଜ ବୋଲି କହିପାରିବା, ଜିରୋ ରିଲେଟିଭ କ୍ଲଜ ବୋଲି କହିପାରିବା. ନେକ୍ସଟ ପଢିବା. ତାହେଲେ ଏତିକି ଆମେ ମନେ ରଖିଲେ. ତାହେଲେ ଦେ ଆର୍ ଦ ପିପୁଲ, ଏଇ ପିପୁଲ କୁ ଏଇ ନାଉନ টিକୁ କିଏ ମଡିଫାଇ କରୁଛି, ଦିସ୍ ଦି ଟୋଟାଲ କ୍ଲଜ. ଏଥିରେ ରିଲେଟିଭ ପ୍ରୋନାଉନ କିଏ ରହିଲା, ହୁ, and who is the subject. It is immediately followed by verb who, but. এই ইয়াକୁ immediately କିଏ ଫଲୋ କରୁଛି, verb but ଫଲୋ କରୁଛି. ମନେ ରହିଲା. ତେଣୁ ଏଠି ଆମେ ଆଇडिया ପାଇଗଲେ जदि रिलेटिव प्रोनाउन पर कौन रही डायरेक्ट वर्ब टी अच्छी ताहले आमे एठी बुझी नै जिबा ये सब्जेक्ट भाव रे यूज होछि. एटा हला आइडिया. रिलेटिव प्रोनाउन पर जदि डायरेक्ट वर्ब टी यूज हला देन वी से इट इज द सब्जेक्ट. इट इज यूज्ड एज द सब्जेक्ट नॉट द ऑब्जेक्ट. अंडरस्टूड? नेक्स्ट वी सी ऑब्जेक्ट रिलेटिव क्लॉज. देखिबा केमति ऑब्जेक्ट रिलेटिव क्लॉज होछि. They are the people that she met at the party. तले सेठी हमें पढ़थिले they are the people who met, एमति पढ़थिले. एठी लेखा है they are the people that she met at the party. Here which one is the subordinate clause? Which one is the subordinate clause? That she met at the party. This is the subordinate clause. In this the subordinate clause, she is the subject and met is the verb. Understood now? She met, से भेटिला काहाकू, those people रो pronoun टा के that. ताले she met that means she met that people. She met that people, that means someone. एटी बुझो छे she met that. So that is here what, the object. से भेटिला काहाकू भेटिला ना that तांकू भेटिला. Understood? So in this the relative clause, this the relative pronoun or the coordinate subordinator is used as the object. जेते बेले ये ऑब्जेक्ट भाव रे यूज हबो सेते बेले हमें ताकू कोन बोली कहबा, ऑब्जेक्ट रिलेटिव क्लॉज. एंड ए दैट ताकू हमें कोन करि परिबा, ओमिट करा जाय. जनरली इट इज ओमिटेड, हला, कैन ऑफन बी ओमिटेड, हला. एवं अमिट हो गले याकू आमे कहूचे जीरो रिलेटिव. जदि अमिट हो गला दे आर द पीपल सी मेट एट द पार्टी, तले दिस द रिलेटिव क्लॉज इज कॉल्ड व्हाट, जीरो रिलेटिव क्लॉज, बेयर रिलेटिव क्लॉज, और वी कैन से इट इज द कॉन्टैक्ट रिलेटिव क्लॉज. अंडरस्टूड? तले कोन हमें आईडिया पाइले, व्हाट वी नो, जे रिलेटिव प्रोनाउन पर जदि सब्जेक्ट रहि जाइथियो पिला माने देखियो, रिलेटिव प्रोनाउन पर सब्जेक्ट ही सी दे वी की जे कोन सी ना थिबो, देन वी से दिस वन इज द ऑब्जेक्ट. एति की आईडिया खर्च कर. सेठी मने रखिथिले हु मेट डायरेक्ट लेखा आइथिला, एठी किछि सब्जेक्ट ही सी दैट किछि नथिला. अंडरस्टूड? किंतु एठी दैट सी मेट अछि, तेनु दैट जेहेतु लागिछि ता पर एठी गोटे सब्जेक्ट रहि जाइछि, तेनु दिस वन इज द ऑब्जेक्ट. ऑब्जेक्ट रहिले आमे एई रिलेटिव प्रोनाउन टी को ओमिट कर दे परिबा, ताकू लेखिबा नाही जनरली, हला. इट इज ऑफन ओमिटेड, ताकू ओमिट करा जाय कले ताकू आमे कहूचे बेयर रिलेटिव. तले एई रिलेटिव क्लॉज टा को आमे कहूचे बेयर रिलेटिव और कॉन्टैक्ट रिलेटिव लाइक दिस हियर रिटन, हला. अंडरस्टूड? देन फंक्शंस ऑफ द रिलेटिव क्लॉज. फंक्शंस ऑफ द रिलेटिव क्लॉज ले सेही पाठटी जोटा मु एबे पढैली जीरो रिलेटिव, सेटा को एठी एका बेले पढै दोछि. व्हाट इज द जीरो रिलेटिव क्लॉज, सेटा लिखा अछि. तले ये जीरो रिलेटिव क्लॉज इज ए रिलेटिव क्लॉज वेयर द रिलेटिव प्रोनाउन लाइक दैट, हु और व्हिच इज ओमिटेड. ताहले ताकू आमे जीरो रिलेटिव क्लॉज बोली कहूछ. एबे जहा संगे संगे पढी से जीरो रिलेटिव क्लोज को हमें बेयर रिलेटिव कहूचे किंबा कांटेक्ट रिलेटिव मध्य कहूचे यू सी द एग्जांपल द बुक आई बॉट एटा हला कोन एथरे आई बॉट टाको हमें कोन बोली कहले आई बॉट टाको हमें कहले कांटेक्ट रिलेटिव क्लोज बा जीरो रिलेटिव क्लोज बा ताको हमें कहूचे बेयर रिलेटिव क्लोज व्हाई because this here the relative pronoun or the subordinator is not there. Okay, this one is that the book that I bought, the book that I bought. Understood? So this is the zero relative one. Now we see functions of the relative clause. What is the function of relative clause? Function of relative clause ta generally दी प्रकार भाव रे काम करे वन इज द डिफाइनिंग रिलेटिव क्लॉज और आइडेंटिफाइंग रिलेटिव क्लॉज अनदर वन इज द नॉन डिफाइनिंग और नॉन आइडेंटिफाइंग रिलेटिव क्लॉज हला चले देखिबा फर्स्ट डिफाइनिंग व्हाट इज डिफाइनिंग रिलेटिव क्लॉज एग्जांपल यू सी द मैन हु हेल्प्ड मी इज नॉन अदर देन यू द मैन हु हेल्प्ड मी द मैन इज नॉन अदर देन यू मीन्स से म्यान टा किए आमे जानी पारनु तले म्यान को किए डिफाइन करूची म्यान को डिफाइन करूची हु हेल्प्ड मी जिए मते सहाय्य कला as this the subordinate clause or this the relative clause is defining the noun identify से करूची the antecedent noun phrase the man हला जेहेतु याकू से डिफाइन करूची डिफाइन करिवार आवश्यकता अछि नहले आमे म्यान संबंध रे किछि जानि परिबा नाही एटार आवश्यकता अछि तेनु याकू आमे कहिले डिफाइनिंग रिलेटिव क्लॉज और वी से इट इज द आइडेंटिफाइंग रिलेटिव क्लॉज दिस द रिलेटिव क्लॉज आइडेंटिफाई द नाउन फ्रेज मैन अंडरस्टूड नेक्स्ट वन non-defining relative clause or non-identifying relative clause. My mother who gets up early helps in my study. तले एतरी कौन देखुचे देखो my mother helps me in my studies or helps in my studies जो सेंटेंस टी लिखाई छी जदी मते से स्टडी हेल्प रे सहायता करंती मो मदर विषय रे मु जानि छी ना जानि मो मदर संबंध रे मु सब बडे बहुत भलो से जानि छी I know very well about my mother. So no need of writing anything about her like this. Who gets up early? Who goes to bed early? Who gets up early from bed? Like this, no need of this. I know my mother well. Understood? So this is the unnecessary thing. It adding some extra information about my mother. Understood? Then this one is saying the non-defining relative clause or what saying? Non-identifying relative clause. And this the relative clause हला पूर्वर गोटे कमा दबा पछरे गोटे कमा दबा एटा हमें पढिथिली आगो जे नॉन डिफाइनिंग रिलेटिव क्लॉज केते बेले कहिबा जेते बेले ता पूर्वर गोटे कमा थिबो एठी गोटे कमा थिबो किंबा एठी गोटे हाइफेन थिबो एठी गोटे हाइफेन थिबो जा लेंचो विषय रे हमें पढिछि हला अंडरस्टूड नाउ दिस इज द थिंग ओके सो दिस इज अबाउट what the relative clause okay this is about the relative clause तले relative clause हमें कहा को कहूचे जे नाउन को कोन करि थाए मॉडिफाई करे से नाउन ता सब्जेक्ट हेई थई पारे किंबा ऑब्जेक्ट हेई थई पारे ओके नेक्स्ट वीडियो रे हमें कोन करिबा ए रिलेटिव क्लॉज रे बही रे जहा सब क्वेश्चंस अछि प्लस किछि एक्स्ट्रा ओएमआर जहा टेस्ट पेपर माने करे अछि हला सैंपल पेपर रे अछि ताको हमें डिस्कशन करिबा ओके थैंक यू